Hey everybody, welcome to part 2 of our series on building slab boxes. Today we're going to be assembling our boxes, but before we do that, we're going to need to think about how we're going to arrange the slabs. There are several correct ways to arrange your slabs before you put them together. This is the classic way called the butt joint, where I have the slabs just butted up next to each other, and you can see the two long ones here butt into the shorter side ends at a perpendicular 90-degree angle on both sides. This arrangement is known as the follow the leader method. So you can see how these circulate around and make a pattern going around in a circle. This is a very good way to do it as well. But we're going to do something called a miter joint. But whatever way you choose, just make sure you think about it and plan ahead. Because if you do a combination of all those, you probably find that it won't work. A miter joint is where you cut a 45-degree angle at the end of your slab, and the resulting two 45-degree angles when put together make a perfect 90-degree corner with the seam right on the edge of the corner, and it's going to hide that seam. This has several advantages. One, it creates more surface area to bond together. Two, it hides the seam. You will have virtually no seam visible and has two complete planes coming to meet at the corners. You can see here on a butt joint, you're going to get a large visible seam. And if you were doing texture or something, you would have, if you had a textured slab, for example, you'd have a textured slab and then an interruption where that seam is. Before you begin cutting your miter joints, it's essential that you lay out your slabs and have a plan for where you're going to cut those miter joints. I like to just make a little cross hatch where I'm going to put them, and this avoids me getting lost when I'm cutting them and cutting on the wrong edge, which is very easy to do. Now that you have a clear plan of where your miter joints are going to go, you're going to go ahead and cut them. And when you do that, you want to make sure that that slab is right flush and square against the edge of the table, lined up right on the edge there. And you're going to use your fettling knife. You can see I'm holding it as a 45-degree angle on the table. And it's almost if the fettling knife is a train and the edge of the table is a track. I'm going to slide my fettling knife right along the edge of the table, and it's going to slice right through. When I get to the end, I'm going to push with my thumb right against the fettling knife, and that is going to prevent the edge of it from breaking off. If you don't have your thumb there, the edge of the little corner there will break right off. One little trick I've learned is to never pick up the slab. If you just rotate it 180 degrees, your miter joint will be in the correct spot. If you flip it over, it'll be opposite. Now, one thing I want you to keep in mind is that we are only doing the miter joints on the sides of our boxes. It is possible to do miter joints on the bottom and the top, but for your first time making a slab box, I find that it's easier to only do them on the sides and then do a butt joint for the bottom. We intentionally made our bottom and our top slabs quite a bit bigger, and that gives us some wiggle room in case our pots aren't square or we didn't quite measure right. It really gives us a lot of wiggle room, and what we're going to do is do a butt joint on the bottom and the top seams. Now it's time to cut all your miters and do a dry fit up and make sure everything fits together perfectly. Now it's time to score all the corners, and I prefer to use the knife on the cleanup tool. I feel like it makes a deeper score into the slab, but alternatively a fork also does work great. I just feel like it has less control, but it is quicker and easier to use a fork. Be generous with your slip application. You want to make sure that you have plenty of it on, and after you put the slip on, you're going to score it and slip it one additional time. Now you're ready to put it together. Notice how I'm going to do this with the slab standing up, and I am not going to pinch the edge. I'm going to use my hands as flat as I can to make sure I'm pushing the slabs together without pinching the corners. That's essential. And a good amount of slip should squish out the edge. Your slabs do not stand up on their own like mine are here. You did not score it and slip it enough, and you need to take it apart and score it and slip it more. Not scoring enough will cause cracking. Even if you don't see them right away, it will crack later on, either in the firing or the drying process. So score it and slip it, overdo it if you need to. It really, in the long run, will just make your life easier. So score and slip plenty. And make sure everything is done while the pot is standing up like this. If you lay it down, it'll fall over. The next step is to take the sides that you've just assembled and place them on the bottom slab that you made earlier. And you're going to take your knife and just lightly draw a line, not cut, but draw a line around the outside of your pot. And that is going to make a mark where you need to score and slip. And you're going to go ahead and score and slip the bottom slab as well as the sides that you just assembled. Score them, slip them, score them again, and slip them again. You score it very well and slip it very generously, and this will keep your pot from cracking, and it'll make a very nice tight seam. Once you put them on top of each other, then you're going to want to give them a little bit of a wiggle and a little push down, and go ahead and use a sponge or your finger and wipe off any excess slip away. And finally, before you do the same thing to the top, one last step I like to do is I like to flip it over and just run my finger along that slab just to push the bottom slab into the sides really well. You want to make sure that there's no air gaps left in between any of the joints and everything's stuck together really nicely. If you do that, it's going to just turn out really good. And all there's left to do is repeat those same steps for the top, and you're all set to go. Just like you did before, you're going to flip it over on top of the slab, and you're going to give it a little bit of a wiggle. That wiggle is going to really lock it in there and really make a tight bond. And then you can go ahead and wipe away the extra slip. Now you see me using a knife here to cut off some of the excess, but I'm not cutting all the way up to the pot. I'm leaving a little bit of extra there, and that's essential. I want you to just leave a little bit there because next video I'm going to show you a better tool that's going to really help you get a nice flat edge on that. So leave a little bit extra there with that clay. Then of course you're going to put it in your tub and snap that lid on there nice and tight. And I will see you in part 3 of this series where we are going to clean up our boxes and make them look beautiful.